Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. This episode, I'll be reviewing episode 3 of season 1 of 30 Coins. This episode is entitled Mirror, or in Spanish, El Espejo. One of the challenges reviewing something is decide how full on into spoilers I should go. I've been kind of wobbling back and forth on should I go all out for each episode because it is a year ago, or do I want to not completely spoil and just try to entice you in, or again, it's not brand new content, but then again, what is my review for? Am I sharing everything I think of the episode so you hear my entire opinion, or am I just trying to do enough to entice you into watching it? And I think my approach there is kind of 50-50. In other words, I'm hoping that you're like me and that you don't care as so much about mostly spoiler reviews. Honestly, I don't really care about being full spoiler or anything when I watch it. I find that less than 1 in 100 things do spoilers ruin something for me, Well, so I think going forward, I'll do maybe the first episode or 2 of each series with more limited spoilers. But then after that, and I'll follow the pattern that from the third review on, so for example, let's say doing the limited spoiler for episode 2. Starting episode 3, I'll have episode 3. I'll include a section where I talk about some more spoiler stuff from the previous episode. So, that being said, let's do the previous episode follow up. So, 30 Coins reminds me, in many respects, like Doctor Who during the Tom Baker era. This in part because Tom Baker's era had a lot of horror elements. That makes sense given that he played the Doctor from 1974 through 1980, which is the heyday of the Hammer films. You will see a lot of Hammer film people in Doctor Who at the time, both in production and in filming. 1970s were an era of entertainment where horror elements they rose to their own prominence. Again, famous movies like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, or The Omen. Or those elements were in many TV shows like the Kolchak the Night Stalker is one of my favorite TV shows of all time from that era. Even stuff like Starsky and Hutch did a vampire episode. So each episode of 30 Coins with its major plots are in series, not in parallel, like say Stranger Things or From, where the major plots happen and the next one happens and the next one happens. They feel like they could almost be divided into multi-part episodes the way the Doctor Who was, where the Doctor Who Period of March is one episode, but it was in 4 30-minute parts, right? Which are broadcast, but each part had its own major subplot to it. Now, and all I just mentioned is the preface to announce to the final major subplot of the episode. Everything builds towards the final act when Soleil, who's clearly possessed, goes full-on possessed. If you look to reveal in the first episode the monster was good or better, the supernatural event reveal in this episode is freaking spectacular. When it happens, that explosion, that visual explosion, man, I was like, wow. Just, comparable things would be, like the reveal in the Exorcist TV show. That was all, that had that sort of impact. It wasn't as visual, I guess you would say. Dark City. We just reviewed Dark City on Roman's channel. And when the reveal happens in Dark City, it's just visually spectacular. It just draws you in. So, as much as I liked the first episode, it was finally after the second episode which sold me. When possessed Soleil goes to front Father Vergara and begins mutilating her own body to put pressure on him because she wants the coin, I thought that the face cut might be the extent of things, but really that was only the warm up. So something out of Japanese body horror essentially was the warm up. Watching Soleil search for the coin, then using music to trigger it, which I'm not 100% sure of the meaning of, but it flows right to the camera effect, which I love from way back when I first saw the Evil Dead movies in the 1980s. The full-on portal opening vacuum horror effect after they made their way to Elena's place was awesome. And the little things like the coin glowing in Elena's hand, almost showing through her hand, that was sweet. And also the portal effect is reminiscent of the portal effect used in many horror movies I just mentioned, like Poltergeist and The Gate, which is a really nice little, I guess you would say B grade, but it made the theaters. Those are from the 80s. And I'm beginning to wonder if the 80s influenced our showrunners. Some supernatural background notes. The title episode is Mirror. I'm not sure if they're... so now we're on to talking about episode 3, okay? El Espejo. So, again, title episode is Mirror. I'm not sure if they're referring to a specific legend, but in both supernatural folklore and in fiction, mirrors are often gateways of some sort. This presents an interesting recurrent theme, though it's abstract. All 3 episodes are about gateways of some sort. The first was the gateway of birth. The second was the Ouija board. Now the third is a mirror. So let's see if that continues. High-level production continues. The sets are amazingly beautiful from wherever they're filming in Europe, Spain. Our opening scenes. We open in New York with another one of those likely possessed people being sent on a mission. He heads into a New York diamond store to pick up something which appears to be a multi-million-dollar necklace that contains one of the coins. Of course, he just wants the coin, so he destroys the necklace, leading, of course, to the store prior to object, and then violence based on that. It's a surreal scene to see a dude walk out into the street, covered in blood, shoot some random people, not sure they'll just walk over to a taxi. And then people just either ignore him like it's a regular occurring event, which, sadly, given New York nowadays, might well be, and they watch him and record events. Now, funny enough, I think that, again, how people react in the real world. So, then into the theme, and after the theme, we open with an interesting dichotomy. We see people moving forward towards a wedding, and see Father Vergara preparing for a service. But then it's revealed that there are only 1 or 2 people in the church service, and those wishing to get married, plus all the celebrants, have convened at City Hall for a secular marriage service, which is being run by Paco, the mayor. So that begets the question: is it because they don't know or trust Father Vergara, or is it a commentary on religion being left out of life of the people? And remember, this is a world where we, the audience, know that the supernatural exists, and that message important the Catholic Church can fight it or manifest it. After some subplot-generated discussion between Paco and Merche, we get to kick off our first major plot point, which is someone who's running late to the wedding who, after some dour dialogue, gets into a car crash. At the hospital, this leads to his wife telling Paco about the mirror, and that being the titular mirror of the episode. The woman takes Paco to the mirror, and she alerts him to something about which can be seen in the mirror. Paco then calls Elena, who is at the veterinary clinic, where her pets there are beginning to go nuts because she has the coin on her. I like how they show the coins having an effect on the surroundings, animal reactions, for example. Elena notices what Paco was shown. There was a book on the table in the mirror, which is not there in real life. Now, this subplot is being used to introduce some concept to provide what I think is the backstory for a lot of what's going on in the show. The show does a decent job providing basic info, but here's a bit more in case you're curious about the real-world lore. The show is referring to what we call the apocryphal text of the Bible, and the apocryphal, say that word 6 times, they're all apocryphal Gospels, referring to the ones mentioned in the show. A gospel, in the Christian sense, is a book of the Bible written specifically about Jesus during his life. The current Christian Bibles are 4 Gospels, all of which date to between 60 and 95 AD. Others exist. Those would be the apocryphal ones. We have both direct and indirect knowledge of them. For example, we have indirect knowledge that 3 of the 4 current Gospels were based in part on older Gospels. They're called the Synoptic Gospels. However, other biblical texts and Gospels have been written over the many centuries. That's usually where some of the out-there stories or all the names of the particular demons and angels come from. The specific Gospel shown here is tied to a Gnostic sect called the Cainities. I don't know if the show is going to use the real-world lore or make it up for the Cainites. But roughly speaking, the Cainites differentiate between the creator god, whom they see as the god worshipped by Jews and Christians, and the successor god or goddess, Sophia, who protected their spirits against the forces of the demiurge, the creator god of the Jews and Christians. They see redemption as working to thwart the workings of the demiurge, who may identify as evil. They claim to have been the group behind the Gospel of Judas. Fundamentally, one of the core groups of this group was interpreting the story of Cain and Abel differently. Okay, so now we don't know if the show is going full on with that or just using it as a reference. So info dump aside, Paco also goes to get Father Vergara, who explains what Cainites are. Less info than I gave you, which is why I did a longer explanation. So we'll see how much they go into it. Now, once Vergara gets involved, things begin to tick off. We get that little uptick of pacing the show is famous for. Father Vergara, though not as overly dismissive of the existence of the supernatural, of supernatural as he was so lenient to Paco, since they could all see what I'm calling the mirror effect, still has a very go-it-alone attitude. This leads to him getting in trouble. I will say that Paco not quite trusting him leads to some surveillance, which allows the good guys to have a chance. I won't comment too specifically on the ending until the next part, until the beginning of my part 4 review, when I go full on spoilers on it. But I will say that for a final act, they managed to both use 2 different horror elements or story structures, but different ones from those used in the final acts of the first 2 episodes. One of those, by the way, is a nice callback to the early part of this episode, a sort of bookend event. And if you think about studying contrast, or if you think about studying contrast, looking into a mirror and seeing something in reverse. I'll be honest, I've always had interesting shows use Catholic lore as a legendarium. It's probably because I was raised Catholic. As I watched the episode, the show's only deeper. Again, 10 out of 10. You'll also be watching this show. Thanks for watching my video. Smash the like button if you liked it. Hit the dislike if you didn't. Comment down below if you have any questions for me or about this video. Share the video if you found it worthwhile. I'm Matt. This has been an episode of Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.